Now, by 7 p.m. tonight, the president will be addressing the nation on the lockdown order announced 2 weeks ago. The secretary to the government of the Federation, while addressing journalists in Abuja today, said his team, they have reviewed the situation globally and have advised the president on the next steps to take.
The PTF is convinced that we must deliver more. We have also been assessing the impact of the lockdown and the level of compliance by Nigerians. While we recognize the difficulties associated with such an unprecedented action, we remain certain, however, that it is a step in the right direction for us to secure a healthier tomorrow. Based on the evaluation of experts and assessment of available data and the experiences of other nations currently in the same situation, the PTF has submitted its recommendations to Mr. President, and I urge Nigerians to please await Mr. President's broadcast at 7 p.m. today. The PTF continues to appeal to all Nigerians to remain calm, maintain personal hygiene, observe physical distancing, and stay at home. The war is still raging, and all hands shall remain on deck until victory is assured. The contributions of every Nigerian is invaluable.
For the Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Hanire, in the new cases of COVID-19 announced, 2 are from Lagos, 2 from Kwara, 1 from Katsina State, and 11 COVID-19 laboratories have been established across the country, just as 4 new centers have been accredited by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC.
As of today, the 12th of April 2020, a total of 323 COVID-19 cases have been confirmed, 85 patients discharged home, and 10 deaths recorded. The 5 new cases are reported from 3 states: Lagos, 2, Kwara, 2, and 1 from Katsina. We therefore now have, from all the preparations we have been making, 11 COVID-19 functional laboratories in Nigeria. That is a good number from where we started. And all this follows the activation of laboratory in Kano and Jos. We have pre-positioned laboratory testing sample and collection kits nationwide. The Federal Ministry of Health, through the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, continues to support response activities in states with new outbreaks through timely deployment of rapid response teams. The accreditation team has finalized protocols for use in accrediting isolation and treatment centers to assure the maintenance of good standards. 4 centers have been accredited in the Abuja metropolis, which I inspected over the weekend and certified them as ready for use.
And during the question and answer session with journalists, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, gave the assurance that the current security breaches in some states are being handled by security operatives.
We've received those reports. I've seen some of the clips on the social media. But what the intelligence and security operatives will first do is to run them through and authenticate the information, pin down the locations, which obviously will be a basis of their subsequent actions. But I can assure you that I even spoke with the governor of Lagos this afternoon, and they've been holding their security meetings and consulting, because every governor is the chief security officer of his state. And if there are issues that they can't deal with, they will escalate it to the national. We know that traditionally there are some flashpoints in every state, and I believe that the law enforcement agencies have mapped out those flashpoints for decisive action. But let me assure Nigerians that it is the responsibility of government to cater for their welfare and for their security and safety, and we will not in any way abdicate that responsibility. We are in a difficult moment, fighting an enemy that is unseen, that is reckless, that is vicious in its spread and in its attack on our wealth and our health. I think Nigerians would not want another seen enemy wanting to intrude into their affairs. So I believe that we will be decisive in dealing with these situations as they arise in the different states, based on the security prescriptions of those areas and also the analysis that will be conducted by the security and law enforcement agencies. Correspondent action will be put in place.
What it appeared the Secretary to the Government of the Federation was responding to what appears to be an added challenge to this lockdown period for residents of Ogun and Lagos states. Now, residents of Olambe, Okaro, Giwa, Temidire, as well as people living in Ogba, College Road area and Ijoko, all in Lagos and Ogun states, had sleepless nights following robbery attacks during the Easter period from Good Friday through Easter Sunday. There were reports of armed robbery attacks, burglary. Looking at this video was posted online by one of the residents from the Agege area in Lagos. Well, in the meantime, a total of 191 suspects have been arrested in Lagos and Ogun states. This is in connection with the incidents you just seen. According to the police, the following exhibits were recovered: 15 locally made guns, 52 live cartridges, 42 cutlasses, a large stash of marijuana. They have also been recovered by police teams in Agbado, Ifo, Ota and Agege axis. The Inspector General of Police has also called commissioners of police nationwide to rejig the security architecture in their various commands to effectively tackle all emerging crimes associated with the COVID-19 lockdown, while also deploying additional intelligence operational assets of the force to strengthen security and bolster public confidence in the affected areas. While the war against COVID-19 rages, statistics from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) puts the number of confirmed cases across 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory at 323. Here's a breakdown of the cases in each of the states, showing Lagos with 176 cases, Abuja, the FCT, 56, Osun State, 20, and the others. Well, joining us for more on efforts to curbing the pandemic is Dr. Dera Okeke from the Emergency Department, University Teaching Hospital, Lewisham in London. Thank you for joining us. She joins us via Skype. First, give us an idea of how the UK is coping with the pandemic.
So, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on the show. Well, with the UK, we're just taking it one day at a time. We're making sure a lot of social distancing is put in place. The thing is that we make sure the lockdown is put in place, people don't come out. But when they come into the hospitals, we just start with the emergency bit, and those that can go home, if they are saturating properly, will be sent home, and those that can't go home, depending on how bad their oxygen need is, it depends if they'll be sent to ITU or if they'll be managed on the wards, that's the medical wards.
Now, India has taken a number of measures to try and combat the virus. And one thing it did was ease the testing eligibility while also restricting public gatherings, among others. How important do you think is increasing the number of testing in Nigeria? The Minister of Health says we're doing smart testing. I know that number 10 said about 18,000 tests are carried out every day.
Yes. So when it comes to testing, it's good for us to know. But at the end of the day, even if you test everybody, what will be done? There's really nothing that can be done for you unless you are symptomatic. Do you understand what I'm saying? So even if you're tested and it ends up that you are, yes, you are positive for COVID-19, you will just be sent home and you'll be told to self-isolate, and people around you need to stay home for the next 14 days. That's what happens. So you will not even come into hospital unless unless you start to need oxygen requirements. Because even if you come into the hospital with high temperature, cough, body aches, we check you. If you're able to saturate above 90%, we send you home, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of patients that need more of that oxygen than you at the moment. And if when it comes to Nigeria, like, don't get me wrong, like I said earlier, testing is not bad, but the need at the moment to keep testing people is not that how like it's adequate, because unless someone is symptomatic, nothing can really be done for the patient.
Finally, we've had a 2-week lockdown in states like Ogun, Lagos, and the Federal Capital Territory, but compliance levels have been mixed. Do you think we should enforce stricter measures to curbing the outbreak or the spread in Nigeria?
Yes, yes, that should be done. Because if people are not staying home, when you come out, there's a very high probability that you might get it from somebody else. Take, for example, yesterday I saw a patient that is COVID positive. This man, he's been locked down. He's been at home for 20 days straight. That's since the lockdown started, right? He hasn't gone out, but he said a few days ago, he actually went to go get some milk outside. And I think that's at that point, he might have gotten the virus, and his immune system is not strong enough to fight for him because he was requiring oxygen. So I think they should put down stricter measures for the lockdown at this moment, because in Nigeria, the truth is that we're not sure how many people have it, and we're not sure if we don't have enough resources to even take care of people that actually turn out having the what do we call it, COVID-19.
All right. We appreciate your time, Dr. Dero KK, Emergency Department, University Teaching Hospital, Lewisham, London. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Still to come on the COVID-19 updates, Anambra State explains the current status and situation of the COVID-19 index case after rumors that the patient absconded. Details in a moment.
Okay, my name is Daniel Williams. I'm a photographer. I live in Calabar. Observing the lockdown season, I decided to be creative and to search inwards. I'm a lover of music, that I decided to try my hands as a virtual DJ, and it was quite fun and interesting. And so as a family, we decided to create a home club, and we dance and party all night because we're trying to be lively and get ourselves out of boredom. So the lockdown season is for our own collective good. It's to eradicate COVID-19 from Nigeria completely. The state government and federal government, they are trying their best. And so it's our duty to just obey instructions and to comply with the laid down rules. And I believe at the end of it all, we shall come out celebrating and giving God the glory.
Welcome back to the program. The reality of COVID-19 is staring us in the face, with some COVID-19 discharged patients sharing their experience. Earlier in the day, I spoke to a survivor of the pandemic who had traveled to some high-risk countries before he tested positive. But now negative, he shares how he weathered the storm and the battle against stigmatization.
I was one of the luckiest patients in there, because my case wasn't as crazy as some other people who passed away, or people who were like some horrible things you've seen a grown-up man doing that you go feel sorry for them, seriously. You know, can you imagine someone want to go to the toilet and before getting into the toilet had to put himself, a grown-up man. You know, all I'm just going to pass on to people out there is stay indoor. Staying indoor temporarily is better than staying down feet below forever. So stay indoor. This thing is real and it's not joking.
It's not a joke. Stay indoors, save lives. Elsewhere, the Nigerian Air Force has begun the distribution of oxygen produced at its liquid oxygen plant to isolation centers and also designated hospitals across the country. Air Vice Marshal Adetokunbo Adesanya announced this via a tweet, which he says is in support of the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Now, states across the country continue to take more measures to curbing the spread of COVID-19. Let's begin in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. The Commissioner of Police, Mr. Bala Shiroma, has been speaking on the lockdown imposed on the nation's capital by the president. In an interview with Channels Television at the command's headquarters, he explained that although the police may not achieve 100% compliance, more policemen are being deployed to ensure that residents not on essential duties are kept off the street. It's a major crackdown in Plateau State, north-central Nigeria, where no fewer than 100 persons have so far been convicted for violating the lockdown order. The violators were charged for disobeying the executive order of the state signed on the 6th of April this year, as they were arrested while roaming about within areas that were not their residences, acts said to be illegal offences punishable under Section 114 of the Penal Code Law of Plateau State. Now, at one of the mobile courts established for trials of violators in Jos North, 5 of the suspects were convicted by the court. However, the suspects pleaded not guilty on the excuse that they were ill and looking for pharmaceutical shops to purchase medicine, a claim the court clearly disagreed with. Over in Kaduna State, the state government is embarking on a massive enforcement of the lockdown, especially to stop interstate travels till further notice. The task force on COVID-19 expressed concern that the risk assessment of the pandemic is troubling, as there could be as high as 57,000 new cases in the state if there is no effective enforcement and implementation of the lockdown order. Over in Imo State, the governor, Hope Uzodinma, says the result of the COVID-19 test conducted on him is negative. He disclosed this via his Facebook page, says the results showing his free status means government will also continue to do everything humanly possible to stop the pandemic from finding its way into the state. Over in Anambra State, the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Vincent Okpala, has been explaining the stories making the rounds on a patient who is no longer in any protective care centers of the state. Now, in a broadcast today, the Commissioner revealed that it happened from the time the sample of the index case was taken and when the NCDC called to inform them of the positive status of the patient, at which point the patient had left from the hospital, had absconded, and was only able to be traced through the use of technology. Now, Dr. Pala says the government insists on not stigmatizing patients or facilities of treatment, disclosing that presently 29 contacts have been traced and they are being followed up by the COVID-19 specially trained medical personnel.
This particular case, I called to find out how the patient was doing, even before the result came out. I was surprised when he said that he didn't know much about the patient. Usually there should be a handout, or when you actually sign out, you hand a handoff to the next physician coming in. So I wasn't happy with the response I got, but I took the name of the doctor he said that knew much about this case, and he was not in the facility, so I called him, and to learn from him that the patient actually has a love from the facility that same day. The patient was not in the facility at that point in time, So we started making calls until we eventually, with the help of technology, identified the index case. So right now, the index case is in one of our protective care centers.
Well, for more on the measures to stopping the spread, a public health physician joins us here in Lagos, Dr. Ajoke Adewale. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, looking at some of the stories you've heard today, it seems there's still fear outside from those who might be asymptomatic, from those who might suspect to have it, or from perhaps those who don't even have it and are afraid. Do you think there's enough sensitization going around on the dangers of COVID-19 and how important it is to present early?
I think that more can definitely be done. During the time of Ebola, there was so much sensitization that even the common man knew something about Ebola. Even on the streets, I get people saying COVID-19 does not exist. And for those who know that it exists, they have this fear about it, and they're also being bombarded with a lot of fake news. So we need to do a lot of community sensitization and engagement so that we can get more people to know exactly what this disease is about and how they can prevent it.
Looking at how it spread, 19 states plus the FCT, do you expect that more of the other states in Nigeria will spread to those states?
I can almost choose the word definitely. As long as there's interstate travel, even in Lagos where we had a lockdown, markets were open, and that already defeats the purpose of a lockdown. And you and I know what the streets look like now. Even in the midst of all this protests and this security loops, the people coming out in mass are also not observing social distancing, apart from the obvious issues with the security loops. It's not even so. What other states need to do is they need to start mitigating against it, plan ahead. They don't have to wait for their index cases before they plan their lockdown measures, plan how to test, plan all the resources they need. What are they going to do if instead of one index case, they have 5 index cases? So it's a matter of time. It will definitely get to the other states, but we can prolong that time and we can plan for where that time happens so that even when it comes, we can contain it effectively.
The federal government has talked about more of the cases being community linked. How much do you think people what can they do to prevent this, to help themselves and, to prevent a wider spread of this?
It still goes down to the, what we've always been hearing about COVID-19. Definitely social distancing cannot be overemphasized. The lockdown was a very good measure, but we can say that it wasn't a well thought out process. If it was a well thought out process, it was not a well implemented process. And that's why it's looking like a failure already because, it's breaking down because of the security mishaps going on in different parts of the state. But first off would be the social distancing, health sensitization. You can't do enough of health education. And you have to engage the community heads. I can't imagine a CDA chairman or the head of a facility telling me there's no COVID-19. It's because we have not done enough. We should be able to take this message to the grassroots levels and let them know. So you have to wash your hands as usual, social distancing, adhere to lockdown measures. This disease is definitely real. And so much else can be done.
Give us an idea of this, fact or fiction, washing in hot water, some says, prevents COVID-19. There's also not drinking anything cold. Some have even said ice cream, cold environment can spread COVID-19.
Yes, I get a lot of these on my WhatsApp on a daily basis. And in fact, bombards me even much more than the authentic information. And that's why I'm saying that we still have a lot to do. We have a long way to go. So I'm going to go straight. You said ice cream. Ice cream does nothing for you. Cold water does nothing for you. We know that warm fluids definitely lessen the symptoms. If you have a stuffy nose and you want to decongest, steam inhalation might help. But the mistake that most people make is to substitute that warm treatment as the major treatment. Nowadays, you have a lot of testimonies of people saying, oh, I steamed in hot water, I steamed in hot lemon, and symptoms disappeared. Let's take note that this disease, in most people, is mild and self-limiting. And so getting all these testimonies do not mean they are true. What you should do is use these harmless home remedies. They're harmless. If you want to use lemon, I wouldn't stop you as a public health physician. I will still tell you to test, take your vitamin C, and adhere to all the things being prescribed by your medical.
Exactly. We appreciate your time, Dr.
It's my pleasure.
Public health physician. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mo.
Over in Spain, the government has begun easing restrictions of a lockdown imposed for weeks to curb the spread of the pandemic in the country. The health ministry says the daily number of deaths has dipped slightly, with 517 reported in the previous 24 hours, compared with 619 announced on Sunday. Also dropping is the number of infections, with over 3,000 confirmed cases, bringing the total to 169,496. Now we have the latest public health advisory to Nigerians on the coronavirus pandemic from the NCDC, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. It has all the information and statistics of cases across states and several other advisories and emergency contacts. The World Health Organization has its live feed updated each moment, regular updates about the spread of the pandemic, apart from the number of cases or deaths, and also recovery efforts. Well, that's our COVID-19 special edition on Channels Television. Thank you for watching. Another update comes your way at 9 p.m. to join us then.